Welcome back to the Monday Morning Point Guard podcast. On today's episode, going to be discussing All-Star Weekend, going through each of the events and my thoughts and feelings on whether they were successes or failures, and just kind of just a general recap into the All-Star Weekend. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to like it as well as subscribe for weekly content. Also, the podcasts are now up on Spotify, so you can listen to the full episode uninterrupted there. And if there's a spot you agree with, disagree with, either reach out to us on Twitter or in that comment section, and we'd love to discuss with you. So Friday night kicked off All-Star Weekend with the Celebrity Game and the Rising Stars Challenge. And with regards to the Celebrity Game, this was a fever dream from start to finish. It feels like it is every year, but this year especially just felt like pure insanity. I was only sort of half paying attention to the game itself, but just in general, nobody really seemed to know the rules, and including the event coordinators. They were very confused as to what was going on. So I really appreciate the effort on behalf of, I guess, the NBA. I'm not sure if it's them who actually decides the rules for this stuff, but I really appreciate the effort on whoever was the decision maker here, making the world's most complicated game of basketball for a bunch of non-basketball players. So just hilarity throughout the night. Also, to go along with that, Kendrick Perkins and Richard Jefferson just taking passive aggressive shots, I want to say, but in most cases, it was just kind of outright aggressive back and forth banter from them. Richard Jefferson was just all over Kendrick Perkins about his weight. And meanwhile, the poor play-by-play lady, I can't remember what her name was, she was just face-palming all over the place and trying to keep some sense of sanity to the broadcast. But this thing just went off the rails really early on. I really just enjoy the anarchy of this whole event. There was a 2-minute power play that was decided on the basis of like a miniature skills challenge between the two teams of celebrities, and it resulted in like a 2-minute power play at the start of the second quarter. So a 4-on-5, which is just insanity for basketball. There was a 4-point shot available, and that's especially hilarious because nobody that's out there really has any general sense of where they are at on a basketball court or just court awareness. Also worth mentioning, just on behalf of the celebrities, I'm sure some of them at least are very good in like pickup game scenarios at their local Y or whatever, just smaller gyms. It's a lot harder to shoot in a big arena like that when you're not used to that. Just when you have the walls kind of close in, it's a lot easier to depth perception wise than when you get into a big arena when you're not used to it. So it just really messes up the shot when you have no idea kind of where you're at on the court, A, and then B, it just doesn't look like what you're used to it looking like. Also, there was a 4-point lead to start the game for the team that won the world's worst 3-point contest. Anderson Varejao versus Myles Garrett in a 3-point shot contest is just really rough. They made 3 shots between the two in a total of 1 minute. It was really tough to watch. It was just brick after brick. And honestly, for Garrett, I thought they should have started counting some as long as he just hit the rim. Interesting choices by both coaches there, Dominique Wilkins and Bill Walton, to throw Anderson Varejao and Myles Garrett out there for the 3-point contest. This was another case of nobody really knowing the rules here. I think the idea was they were supposed to be shooting from behind the 4-point line, but nobody really seemed to, and we were counting shots with, regardless of whether they were behind the line or in front of it. And speaking of that 4-point shot, come on, Ruffles. $4,000 donated to charity for every 4-point shot made from the celebrities. That's just not enough money. I know Jack Harlow hit a couple, but it was just him getting lucky. His jump shot looks like a toddler trying to shoot on a 10-foot hoop. Like when during halftime of like a middle school game or like a high school game in the summer where there's nothing going on at halftime and the teams go to the bench and they let the kids kind of roll the ball out there and just shoot around a little bit in between timeouts or whatever. And then there's inevitably like a kid who's way too small to get the ball to the goal on a 10-foot hoop. That's what Jack Harlow's jump shot looks like. It looks like it takes every ounce of strength for him to get it to the rim. And I also just can't believe that they carted Bill Walton out here for this. He had no idea who any of the celebrities were, and he just kind of meandered around at times. There was no one to kind of keep him contained. He always says some weird stuff too, and they had him mic'd up for a little bit, which was hilarious. It looked like Grandpa Simpson at times, just because in between timeouts and like quarter changes where they were doing some weird nonsense, be it the skills competition or otherwise, he would just kind of wander around out in the middle of the court. It was really hilarious. This game really gets ugly at times. So it's nice to see some professional athletes out there in terms of the football players. I'm really not sure what the former NBA players and WNBA players add. It's a weird spot for them to be in. They're never really sure how hard they need to try, and they don't want to dominate things too much and kind of a charity type game situation. So it just ends up being really underwhelming on their part. If I would be all for like a former player game, sort of like the big three, but for guys who don't necessarily want to sign up for all of that, just let them have one quick game during the All-Star game. I would be all for like a former player game. And then not to be too mean to the WNBA, but honestly, I don't see why we need to shoehorn them into this. If anybody wants to watch the WNBA, they can, without the confines of a celebrity game. I guess it's a promotional thing, but I don't think it does a really great job of showcasing what they can do. As far as the professional athletes go, I understand wanting to get like the local NFL team involved here in the celebrity game, but could they have picked two worse Cleveland Browns to represent that team as far as public perception goes? Kareem Hunt is likely still on the Chiefs had he not shoved a girl to the ground in a hotel room or a hotel hallway. And then Myles Garrett nearly killed somebody on the football field, nearly killed Mason Rudolph by clubbing him over the head with his own helmet. That was only a couple of years ago. So just really, really strange to select those two Cleveland Browns. Maybe they're the only two that wanted to sign up for this. I have no idea, but I think they could have probably gotten some better representation for the Browns organization. And speaking of Myles Garrett, Machine Gun Kelly needs his head examined. He nearly got killed by Myles Garrett tonight on a dunk attempt. And then after that, and after Garrett had blocked a shot at some point in the game, Machine Gun Kelly was kind of jawing at him. And I couldn't tell what was said, but it sure didn't look very friendly. Luckily for Machine Gun Kelly, Garrett just sort of ignored him and kind of walked around him. Yeah, just in the last 12 months, Machine Gun Kelly tried to pick a fight with Conor McGregor and now Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett probably could have rolled him into like a paper ball and shot him into the hoop. like a Looney Tunes cartoon or something. So he needs to be careful with who he's picking fights with. If he keeps going after the wrong people, somebody's eventually just going to break him in half, like Bane did to Batman in the Batman movie. So for the Rising Stars game, I absolutely love the new format. The first game, it was a little rough effort-wise at the beginning, but once it got close down the stretch, as they were approaching 50 points, everything intensity-wise, defense-wise, got dialed up from there, and it persisted throughout the rest of the game. So game two, the whole game was really intense and competitive, and then obviously the championship round as well. Format wise, just a quick recap for those who didn't watch. There was 4 teams involved, 4 teams that were drafted by members of the All NBA 75 team. So we had Gary Payton, James Worthy, Isaiah Thomas, and Rick Barry. And there would be 2 games, both going to 50. And then the winners of those games would play in the championship round in a game to 25 with a Clorox Clutch Challenge in between. I actually kind of liked the Clorox Clutch Challenge. That's a real tongue twister. It would have been better, though, if they had to recreate the actual shots from those iconic playoff moments instead of just shooting from the spot. As much as I loved seeing Scotty Barnes miss 6 layups in a row, I would have rather seen some guys try to do the baby hook or like backpedal into the Ray Allen 3. Just some different stuff, really having to recreate the shot rather than just shooting from that spot. But it was nice. They showed why each spot was chosen. So it was pretty cool. Cade Cunningham ends up winning MVP. That's kind of whatever. I would have taken Evan Mobley, but I'm really not too mad about it. He was a good selection. He did hit the shot to kind of seal the game, pseudo seal it. He was the last field goal in the championship round, hit a big 3, and then it was ended on free throws. It was really difficult for me to find like a draft summary, but I eventually did. And it was a little bizarre, but not as bizarre as I would have thought it would have been from a couple of, out of touch former NBA players. It's tough to ask them to draft of like a bunch of young guys who they may not have even seen play, but they did a fairly good job. It was a snake order draft, and Anthony Edwards went 1, Evan Mobley 2, LaMelo Ball 3, Cole Anthony 4, which I thought was a bit of a stretch from him, from James Worthy, especially given what happens later. Cade Cunningham goes 7th. Tyrese Halliburton, this was the one I could not believe. He was the 17th pick in the 5th round. That's just insane to me. When I saw that him and Anthony Edwards were on the same team, and I knew that Edwards was the first overall pick, I was like, someone really messed up here. Like, there's no way that Halliburton should have made it back to Isaiah Thomas in the second round after a full second round. But no, he was actually in a 5th round pick. I can't imagine the case for taking guys like Jaden McDaniels, Sadiq Bey, Jayshawn Tate, or Isaiah Stewart over Halliburton. I like all of those players, but they're more role players than they are, really solid key contributing members of a team like Halliburton is. And to kind of go along with the team construction thing, I was just really surprised to see Mobley and Cade Cunningham get paired together, and then obviously the Halliburton and Anthony Edwards combo. I feel like even if Cade and Halliburton weren't first round guys for this draft, that's fine, but I thought they should have been the first 2 off the board in the second round based on who was kind of picked around them. The rest of it, I could probably go through and find little disagreements here or there, but I would just kind of be nitpicking. For me, the Halliburton thing was just the most insane part of this. I guess just playing in Sacramento is a rough life. Nobody knows who you are. Indianapolis isn't exactly in the national media spotlight. That's where he's at now, but at least we might get to see him make some noise in the playoffs at some point. So it is a little bit better of a situation to be in than in Sacramento. Also, strange choices for coaches. I kind of mentioned some strange choices in the celebrity game as far as a couple of the Browns players involved. Thought that the 2 of the coaches here were strange choices, and Isaiah Thomas and Rick Barry. Isaiah Thomas has had some sexual harassment issues in the back, going back to his time with the Knicks when he was in the front office. And honestly, he was just a terrible GM altogether while he was there. And then Rick Barry is just a huge jerk from everything that I've read about him. And he said some really questionable things when it comes to race not that long ago, like in the 80s, I'm thinking about in particular. And I'm saying questionable as the best case scenario, outright offensive in the worst case scenario. So really weird to see them 2 out there, but ironically, they were really well behaved. And it was actually James Worthy who dropped an F-bomb on a live mic, which was hilarious. And then Desmond Bain later, when they were interviewing him after the clutch challenge, he cursed during that interview too. So lots of fun to be had there listening to that. Rick Barry, his past issues aside, he's really spry and kind of sharp for a 77-year-old guy. And I want to give him some props here. It really appeared he was coaching the guys, particularly that G League guy that was on his team. He was really, it seemed like, engaged and trying to coach him up and give him some good tips and information, kind of going forward as he enters his career. So it was nice to see the older generation kind of giving back to the up and coming young guys. Yeah, I mentioned how much I love the new format. It really bred a competitive atmosphere here, and it was a lot of fun. But how great have the last 2 draft classes been? I really didn't feel like any of these guys didn't belong in this game or don't belong in the NBA like I have in past years. Everybody has shown promise here at some point, whether it been recently or earlier, depending on their injuries. Jalen Green looked really good. Cade Cunningham obviously did. He won the MVP. And then Evan Mobley was awesome in this and has just been awesome in general all year. Those are the top 3 picks in this most recent draft. I haven't seen a lot of Josh Giddey play this year since I'm blocked from the Oklahoma City games based on where I live, and I don't get to watch them on TV again based on where I live. I don't know. The NBA needs to look at that. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to watch the Oklahoma City games when I don't have the opportunity to watch them on local television either, even if I had like the correct cable package. But I'm really impressed with Josh Giddey's playmaking, and he's been killing it this season too. The less said about Scotty Barnes tonight, the better, but jokes aside, he's looked really good all year. And just the top 8 picks that were in the draft, this past draft, Jalen Suggs has been sort of a disappointment this year, but he's had some injuries and some other issues. So it's not inconceivable that he would be able to turn it around at some point. And that's really the top 8 picks in the draft. They've all looked really good. And we don't get to say that most years. We don't get to say that most guys are at least contributing members to an NBA team, if not stars. We don't ever get to say that about the first top 8 picks. And of the sophomore guys, Anthony Edwards didn't really do anything tonight, but he's having a breakout year. LaMelo Ball is obviously awesome. He's an all-star this season. And Halliburton is just really, really good, has been the center of a pretty controversial trade, and he's going to do great things for Indiana. I'm really excited for him and for them, and just for each team in general to have a really elite playmaker creator type. And Giddey, Halliburton, LaMelo, and Cade, they were all spread out amongst the 4 teams. It's really impressive in and of itself to have 4 guys in the last 2 draft classes who have that skill playmaking. That's kind of that pass first point guard has kind of been a dying position in the league. And they're kind of, while not necessarily all point guards, they are all really special passers. I'm not going to go through each and every guy that played in this game. I just, in general, felt like everyone belonged and has a future in the NBA. And I know in the past, I've not always felt that way about this game. The league just in general in really great hands going forward here. So All-Star Saturday night in the NBA was just a big ol' L. It was a big L for the NBA and just really disappointing for NBA fans in general. That seemed to be the reaction on Twitter as well as my own. Just a really disappointing night. And this is typically the most exciting night, at least in my opinion. In the past, we've gotten some questionable effort, not so much lately, but in the past, we had some really questionable effort from the All-Star game, but the new format seems to have breathed new life into that. So that's been really fun as of late. But I really like and look forward to, these particular contests that they do. But it was just really boring and really disappointing. Going into this, I made a couple of predictions. I love to make predictions for this stuff. It's really fun for me. I always look for players, or I guess in this case, teams that have something on the line. So I took the Cavs in the skills contest just because playing in front of the home crowd, they kind of had the most to prove out of the other teams. So I knew they were going to really try. And for a lot of these contests, that's like most of it is like, who's actually going to try? So I had them. Karl Anthony Towns, with all the comments he's made about wanting to be recognized as the greatest shooting big man of all time, I knew he was going to show out for the 3-point contest, and he did. Jalen Green has had kind of a rocky rookie year, I want to say. He's definitely been overshadowed by a lot of the other rookies, so I really expected him to show out in the dunk contest, and boy, was I wrong about that one. But let's get into kind of a breakdown of the whole night here. So we started out with the skills contest, which we always do, and I guess the new format is fun. I like that there are multiple components to it and multiple skills. They sort of combined the old skills contest with the old Rising Stars Challenge. And for those who don't remember what that is, it was that contest where they'd have like a city represented by a former NBA player, a current player, and then the WNBA player from that particular city. And they compete in like a shooting contest where it was a time trial on having to hit shots from certain spots, and they could kind of decide who they wanted taking what shot based on the player's skill sets. And that was a lot of fun. I really missed that event, but they combined it here. And the first contest was sort of looking like that Rising Stars Challenge. And then they did a passing contest, and they did the old obstacle course, and whoever won a certain amount of those challenges, like I think the first 2 were worth 100 points, and then the obstacle course was worth 200 points. So whoever advanced through that would get to the championship round. And even the way that was designed was really ridiculous. So if you win the final of those 3 challenges, you just advance the championship round. So we had a different team win each one. So the rookies won the obstacle course, so they automatically advanced, even though they won the same amount of challenges as the other 2. So the team Antetokounmpo and team Cavs were tied. So you would expect them to maybe, let's send your best player through the obstacle course again, and best time moves on. No, they didn't do that. They were just like, okay, we're gonna match shot for shot. So Thanasis, you're up against Darius Garland. Good luck. And so Thanasis bricks the first shot because he's a terrible shooter, and then Darius Garland buries it, and Team Cavs moves on. Really anticlimactic, but not as anticlimactic as the championship round, which I guess they just ran out of ideas. So they're like, screw it. We'll just have them take a half court shot. First team to make a half court shot, you win the skills challenge. The skills challenge based on a half court shot. Yeah. I thought it was really dumb, really stupid, really anticlimactic. And then also just another complaint about the skills challenge is, my God, it just took forever. It just drug on what seemed like forever. And there was really a much better way to do this. So rather than do 3 preliminary, like first round skills contests, why not do the shooting and the passing? And then whoever wins the shooting in the first preliminary, they move on to the championship round. Then the remaining 2 teams do the passing contest that they did, and then whoever wins that moves on to the championship round. And then you do the relay obstacle course race for the championship. That would be way more fun than just like, forget it, we're out of ideas, just take a half court shot, whoever makes it first wins. It was ridiculous and boring and anticlimactic. So that was kind of hit and miss, good and bad with the skills contest. Then we had this really weird promotional thing for a game show that I guess the Currys are putting on, Steph Curry and Ayesha Curry. I guess they're really leaning into the game show thing. I know Curry had some miniature golf reality show or game show, whatever you want to call it. So I guess they're kind of venturing off into that. But to promote it, they brought out Steph and Ayesha and 2 Chainz and his wife, blindfolded everybody, and then asked them a series of questions and gave each person 2 colors of Gatorade, one representing themselves and one representing their partner. And then it'd be like, who is most likely to do X? Who makes the funniest noises? Who acts like Charles Barkley, I think were some of the questions. And they would take a drink of which person they thought was most likely to do that with either themselves or their partner. And if both players, like both spouses, guess the same person, they would get a point. Really weird place to do something like that for an NBA All-Star event. Everybody was really confused. I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. It's like something you'd see at like a bridal shower or something like that. I don't know why we needed that, but if we were going to have that, there was, again, a much better way to do this. Why not bring out Charles Barkley and Shaq as a couple to compete? And they could have competed against Kevin Durant and James Harden. That would have been really hilarious and really fun. Maybe don't tell anyone beforehand that they're participating in that and just call them out to center court and make them do it spontaneously. That would have been really funny. There's a 0% chance I watched the show based on that promotion. Not that I was really ever going to watch the show. I didn't even know it existed until last night. So I guess mission accomplished for them. They got some public awareness about the show, but based on the promotion, no, I'm not going to waste my time watching that. So then we moved on to the 3-point contest, and that was pretty fun, I guess. I mean, pretty standard. I really like what they've added to this contest over the years. So they added like an entirely money ball rack that's worth more points, and each contestant could choose which rack they would like to have only money balls on. And then with the emergence of guys like Curry and Trae Young taking these really deep threes, they've added like this do zone 3, which is worth 3 points as opposed to 1 or 2 in the case of the money ball. And I really like that too. I think that's a lot of fun. This is the best event we have now. It just is. It was a lot of fun, and Karl Anthony Towns ended up taking it. He went on a streak, but it can only ever be so exciting watching guys take wide open shots. It was really fun, but it doesn't have the potential to be as fun as the dunk contest. So in between the dunk contest and the 3-point contest, we got this kind of weird, whatever, DJ Khaled performance. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, for what it was, I think it was tough for them to follow up the nostalgia bomb that we got for the Super Bowl halftime show. But this halftime show kind of scratched that itch a little bit. They brought out Lil Wayne and Ludacris. I was kind of in and out of the room at that time, so I missed the beginning of it. But I saw Lil Wayne come out, who was just terrible, by the way, just absolutely awful. He was really off rhythm, off beat, just didn't really have the timing right. But Ludacris was really solid, and I wasn't expecting him to come out there. So, as I said, it was fine. It was an entertaining show, but just really tough to follow up the Super Bowl halftime show with that. And DJ Khaled as like a live performer is just kind of tough because he's just kind of out there screaming. He's fun. He's really fun as a producer, but as a live performer, there's just not a lot that he really brings to the table. And then we got the dunk contest after that, and this is supposed to be the headline event of the night. As I mentioned, I took Jalen Green here. I was epically wrong about the Jalen Green prediction. He took what felt like 30 minutes to get the first dunk in, or maybe it was second dunk. I can't remember. By the time he finally put a dunk in the hoop and finally got a score for something, it was just the whole life of this contest had been kind of sucked out of the room, and the crowd was out of it. Everyone lost their attention. The judges were annoyed. It was just not fun. There was kind of a weird moment I do want to mention before the dunk contest got started. I was kind of half paying attention, and then there was just like this old man that was on the court or like in the judge's seat, and they just like yanked him off and like ran away with him. I don't know if it was like a fan who wandered onto the court or some production team guy who was just in a place he shouldn't have been. But either way, that was really funny. That was by far the most exciting part of the contest. I feel bad for Obi Toppin though, because he actually had some really creative dunks, some really fun dunks. I don't think he would have won necessarily if we had a really good dunk contest, but he showed out. He did well. It's just no one else did. No one else did. I guess Cole Anthony had an okay dunk, and then he missed his second attempt, so he was eliminated. And then in the championship round, uh, Juan Toscano Anderson had like he tried the honey dip. I think he seemed to just overestimate how high he could jump. He didn't seem to have the vertical to pull off what he was trying to pull off. So he tries the honey dip, and it ends up just being this really bland windmill. And that was the first dunk of the championship round. And by that time, all hope was lost that this would be entertaining. And it was whatever. Obi Toppin just kind of won by default, just based on what everyone else did. So it was just not fun. To put it mildly, really boring. The crowd was bored out of their mind. It felt like they were doing it at an empty arena, and it seemed like that was a packed house from what I could see, or at least there was enough people in the stands that you would hear some crowd noise, but I guess everyone was occupied with their phones rather than watching the competition, and I don't blame them. It was rough. How do they fix this event? How would they fix this going forward? I have no idea. I have no earthly idea how they would fix this, since nobody seems to want to do it. Maybe they should just give each player's team who wins, like the player's team who wins the contest, give them an extra win or an extra loss, depending on what the team wants. That's an idea. That's kind of a joking idea. My more serious idea would be, let's treat this more like the Olympics. Let's rotate this out with some other events. Maybe you could do the dunk contest at most every other year, maybe once every 3 years or once every 4 years, and just rotate it in and out. That way people start to miss it. The players start to miss it, fans start to miss it, and give guys a chance to kind of come up with some cool dunks, because there's only so many ways that you can dunk the basketball. And for guys, particularly who are trying to compete and win games, they're not thinking about, oh, geez, what cool dunks can I do for the dunk contest? They're busy practicing, actually working on their skills and improving. And they might take a couple days or a day before the dunk contest to try and come up with some cool stuff to do. And so much has been done already. It's hard to come up with a new, fresh idea for that. So I don't blame them for kind of struggling to do this. And with how maligned it's been in the past few years, I don't blame anyone for not wanting to do it. So maybe if you don't do it as often, that brings the excitement back. It brings some anticipation. So you're like, oh, this is the year we finally have the dunk contest. It's finally back, kind of like the Olympics. I think if you did the Olympics every year, I think people would grow tired of it. So they do it at once every 4 years, and everybody gets really excited about it all over again. So they did that with the dunk contest. That could be pretty cool if you rotate that in with like a one-on-one contest or like a king of the court thing. Maybe you could do horse. You could do stuff like that, and I think that would be really fun, and just rotate those in and out, rotate those type of competitions in and out, and that can maybe breathe some new life back into the dunk contest. Other than that, I don't think they can keep going as they're going. I think they've got to change the rules. But when they tried to make it like a team East versus West thing, I maybe that's not what they did, but I remember there was a team dunk contest where like John Wall, Paul George, and somebody else were on a team for the dunk contest. And that was weird, and that was boring too. So I don't really know how you change the rules enough to make this exciting other than to just not do it every year. That's really all I've got. Last up for All-Star Weekend was the All-Star Game on Sunday night. Just a really awesome game, a lot of fun. It was exactly what you would expect and want from an All-Star game. Just a really great time. To kick things off, though, we had Machine Gun Kelly, who was a really weird choice for MC. I know he's from Cleveland, and I think no one is more excited about that fact than himself. So it was just weird. He kind of tried to do this stand-up routine, I guess, but I couldn't tell if he was being serious or not. And it just landed really flat. I don't think a single solitary soul in the crowd laughed at any of his jokes, be it the Avengers joke or really anything else. Maybe his self-deprecating joke of how good he is at basketball. Yeah, it was really bizarre. Also, a little bit more criticism for TNT here. I like the idea of having two broadcasts, like a more serious one for something like this, and then just the inside crew just kind of shooting the shit. But I brought a big TV for a reason. I want to be able to watch the game on my big TV. So I don't want to have to just sit there and watch Draymond Green kind of meander and walk around and have a camera on the guys for the TNT crew just kind of sitting there. I don't need to see Charles Barkley sitting at a chair for 48 minutes or longer in this case. So I would have rather just had the audio from those guys and seen the game on the full screen, but they cut it up in like this weird system. So I went back to the normal broadcast because I wanted to watch the game somewhat normally, at least size wise on the TV. So first half was a lot of fun. No defense being played, exactly what you'd expect from an all-star game. Some really big dunks, stuff like that. But the halftime show is really where things kind of got moving in the right direction. I felt it was so amazing. I'm glad they took as much time as they needed to really honor the guys from the All NBA 75 team. It was really tasteful. It was just really cool to see all those legends together. But it was really bittersweet seeing all the guys who have passed away, and especially the ones I feel like most of them were around for the 50th year team. And just knowing that even less are going to be around for the 100-year team, it's just so important to take in these moments and really honor the guys who have paved the way for this game. But as for the game, it was, like I said, a really fun game. We've got some spectacular dunks from Ja, some really flashy passes from LaMelo and LeBron and all those guys. Giannis is always fun in these games because that dude just does not know how to not try and like even in an all-star game. It looked like early on Embiid was kind of hunting for the MVP and really wanted it, but then Steph just went nuclear. He was absolutely on fire. And for a guy who's probably had the worst shooting season of his entire life, this might just be what gets him going down the stretch. This might be the spark that he needed to really get the shooting going again. Effort wise, I mentioned it's always questionable through the first three quarters in these all-star games. That's where you just get the big dunks, the fancy passes, alley-oops off the backboard, just the really fun stuff. And then down the stretch, the games just get really intense in the fourth, especially under the new format where it's more like a pickup game. And I think that's how this should be treated. You know, you're reaching a target score rather than having a clock. The intensity just got really high. Everybody was going all out. You can tell once that fourth quarter rolls around, they just can't help but really to go all out. I mean, Bucks fans had to be crapping their pants when they saw Giannis go up for a chase down block on Chris Middleton. Like if they had landed awkwardly there, that could have been a disaster for their season, but nothing ended up happening, thank God. So, um, but yeah, they just can't help themselves from going there. And they tried their best to get Curry the points record here, but it just wasn't meant to be. I feel like under a traditional game format where you've got a 12-minute fourth quarter as opposed to first team to hit 24 for the quarter, or I guess that's not actually how it works. The team who is in the lead, they add 24 to their score, and that's the target score. Kind of complicated, but it makes sense. I feel like anyways, I feel like if it had been a traditional format, he would have definitely gotten the points record. I mean, I think he had 50 and the record was 52. So they really tried to feed him the ball down the stretch, but the game was so close that they really couldn't just force feed Curry. They kind of had to win the game at some point. And it was very fitting, just a storybook ending that LeBron hits the game winner to seal the All-Star game on the 75th anniversary of the league and in Cleveland. It just ended the weekend on a really high note.